Welcome to Mythos AI, your source for Cliff's Notes on complex subjects. Join Anna and Phil for yet another engaging conversation.
Welcome to our deep dive into George Orwell's Animal Farm.
Okay.
We're going to be using a scholarly analysis of the book as our guide today.
All right.
Animal Farm, though written decades ago, remains remarkably relevant.
It really does.
We're going to unpack why this story continues to resonate, exploring its use of allegory, its powerful themes, and its connections to historical and contemporary politics.
Sounds good.
So to start off,
Yeah.
why don't you tell us why Animal Farm is considered a classic?
Well, Animal Farm is considered a classic for a reason.
Okay.
Orwell masterfully uses a simple story about animals to explore complex themes of power, corruption, and societal dynamics.
And just to give our listeners a quick overview, can you kind of lay out the plot for us? How does it start? What are the main events?
Animal Farm takes place on Manor Farm.
Okay.
The animals, led by pigs, named Napoleon and Snowball, revolt against their human farmer, Mr. Jones, driven by the dream of an equal and free society, guided by the 7 commandments of animalism. The initial rebellion is successful, and the animals experience a brief period of hope and optimism.
Right, so they're successful at first.
Yeah, okay.
However, this sense of unity and progress begins to crumble as the pigs, particularly Napoleon, gradually seize control, manipulating the other animals and twisting the principles of animalism to serve their own interests.
So you mentioned the 7 commandments.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on their significance and maybe talk about how those are manipulated over time?
Absolutely. So the 7 commandments are initially intended to embody the principles of animalism and ensure equality for all animals.
Okay.
However, as the pigs consolidate their power, they subtly alter these commandments to legitimize their actions and maintain control.
I see.
For instance, the commandment, "No animal shall sleep in a bed," is eventually changed to, "No animal shall sleep in a bed with sheets,"
Oh, very clever.
allowing the pigs to enjoy the comfort of beds while technically adhering to the revised commandment.
This manipulation of language is a key tactic used by the pigs to deceive the other animals and justify their increasingly tyrannical rule.
So the story is very clearly an allegory.
Right.
Can you kind of explain how this literary device works in Animal Farm?
Sure.
And maybe what historical events it's supposed to reflect?
So an allegory is a story with a hidden meaning.
Okay.
In Animal Farm, the animal society represents human society, and the events of the story parallel the events of the Russian Revolution and the subsequent rise of the Soviet Union under Stalin.
Wow.
Orwell, a democratic socialist who was deeply critical of Stalin's regime, uses this allegory to expose the dangers of totalitarianism and the betrayal of revolutionary ideals.
So the animals on Manor Farm are stand-ins for real historical figures and groups.
Precisely.
Can you give us some examples of maybe who the animals are supposed to represent?
So, for example, Old Major the Pig, who inspires the rebellion with his vision of an animal utopia, represents both Karl Marx, whose ideas fueled the Communist Revolution, and Vladimir Lenin, the leader of the Bolshevik Revolution.
Gotcha.
Napoleon, the tyrannical pig, who seizes control of the farm, represents Joseph Stalin, who ruthlessly consolidated his power in the Soviet Union.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
What about other prominent characters like Snowball and Squealer?
Yes.
Who are they supposed to represent?
So Snowball, Napoleon's rival, who is eventually driven from the farm, represents Leon Trotsky, a key figure in the Bolshevik Revolution who was later exiled and assassinated by Stalin's agents.
Right.
And then Squealer the pig, who serves as Napoleon's propaganda minister, represents the Soviet propaganda machine, which was used to control information, manipulate public opinion, and justify Stalin's actions.
Okay, so these parallels between the animal characters and their historical counterparts highlight how Animal Farm functions as a commentary on the dangers of unchecked power and the perversion of revolutionary ideals.
Exactly. Orwell's use of allegory allows him to critique a specific historical event while also exploring broader themes that are relevant to any society where power is concentrated in the hands of a few.
Now let's delve deeper into how the theme of power and its corrupting influence is developed throughout the story.
Okay.
So, why don't you take it from here?
Sure. So one of the key ways Orwell illustrates this theme is through the gradual transformation of the pigs.
Okay.
Initially, they are seen as the most intelligent animals capable of leading the rebellion and establishing a more equitable society.
Mm-hmm.
However, as they gain more power, they become increasingly self-serving, exploiting the other animals and gradually adopting the very behaviors they initially denounced in humans.
Can you give some specific examples of how the pig's behavior changes over time to reflect this corruption?
Sure. So at first, the pigs work alongside the other animals, promoting the principles of animalism and emphasizing equality.
Right.
However, as time passes, they start taking on more privileges, claiming they need special food and comfortable living conditions to fulfill their leadership roles.
Okay.
They also begin to manipulate information, changing the Seven Commandments to suit their needs, and using Squealer to spread propaganda and suppress dissent.
And this manipulation becomes increasingly blatant as the story progresses, culminating in that chillingly cynical final commandment. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
Yeah, that final commandment perfectly encapsulates the pigs' hypocrisy and their complete abandonment of the principles that initially motivated the rebellion.
Right.
They have become the very tyrants they overthrew, mirroring the oppressive regime they were supposed to replace.
Right.
Yeah. The pig's transformation is a gradual process, but certain key events really solidify their grip on power.
Okay.
One of the most pivotal moments is the expulsion of Snowball from Animal Farm.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's a turning point in the story.
Right.
So can you elaborate on this event and why it's so significant in terms of the power dynamics?
Sure. So Snowball, unlike Napoleon, is a genuine believer in animalism.
Okay.
He's idealistic
Okay.
and committed to improving the lives of all the animals.
Mm-hmm.
His plans for the windmill, for instance, represent a vision of progress and technological advancement that could benefit the entire farm.
But Napoleon sees him as a threat.
Exactly. Napoleon sees Snowball as a threat to his own ambition for absolute power.
Right, because he wants all the power for himself.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he uses a combination of cunning and brute force to eliminate Snowball as a rival.
How does he do that?
Well, he trains the puppies taken from their mothers at birth into a fierce guard dog unit loyal only to him.
Oh, wow. So he's literally creating his own little army.
He is.
That's so sinister.
And this private army symbolizes the use of violence and intimidation to suppress dissent and consolidate power.
Right, it's like having his own secret police.
Exactly.
And then during the meeting where Snowball is presenting his plans for the windmill, Napoleon unleashes the dogs.
Yes.
Yeah.
And chases Snowball off the farm and instills fear in the other animals.
So from this point forward, his rule is unchallenged.
Precisely.
Napoleon's the dictator.
He is.
Okay, so the expulsion of Snowball not only eliminates a political rival,
Yes.
but it also allows Napoleon to control the narrative surrounding animalism.
Right. He rewrites history, blaming Snowball for setbacks and portraying him as a traitor who was secretly working against the interests of the farm.
It's classic propaganda.
It is.
You create a scapegoat,
Mm-hmm.
you blame them for everything.
Exactly.
Okay, so this manipulation of information is a key aspect of how Napoleon maintains control.
Yes, and this is where Squealer's role becomes crucial.
Right, because he's the propaganda minister.
He is.
Okay.
He acts as Napoleon's propaganda minister, constantly spinning events to cast Napoleon in a favorable light and demonize Snowball.
And he's very good at it,
He is.
from what I remember in the book.
Yeah.
He's very eloquent. He's very persuasive.
Very persuasive.
Okay, so can you give us some specific examples of how Squealer uses propaganda to manipulate the animals?
Sure. One striking example is how Squealer justifies the pigs' taking of the milk and apples for themselves.
Okay.
He argues that these foods are essential for the pigs' brain power,
Okay.
claiming that if the pigs were to become weak or sick, Mr. Jones would return and enslave them all again.
It's a classic fear tactic.
It is.
Instill fear in the population so that they'll do what you want.
Exactly.
Okay. And he also very skillfully manipulates language to kind of alter the animal's perception of events.
He does.
Like, for instance, when the animals discover that the pigs are now sleeping in beds, Squealer explains that this is not a violation of the commandment against sleeping in beds because the pigs have merely removed the sheets.
Right.
He's twisting the meaning of the words
He is.
to suit the regime's agenda.
Exactly.
Is very clever.
Mm-hmm.
Another tactic that he uses, if I remember correctly, is he just constantly bombards the animals with statistics and figures that supposedly prove the farm is thriving under Napoleon's leadership.
Yes. These statistics are often fabricated or misleading, but they create an illusion of progress and prosperity, masking the harsh realities of life on Animal Farm.
Yeah, so the manipulation of information and the use of propaganda are really central to how totalitarian regimes maintain control.
They are.
And Orwell just brilliantly illustrates this through Squealer's character and his mastery of language as a tool of deception.
Yes.
He also highlights how those in power can exploit the inherent trust and loyalty of the masses,
Right.
particularly those who are less educated or lack the ability to think critically.
Right.
And this is evident in the character of Boxer, the hard-working horse, who becomes a tragic victim of the pigs regime.
Yes. Boxer is a truly heartbreaking character.
He is.
Despite his incredible strength and work ethic, he's ultimately betrayed by the very leaders he blindly trusts and serves.
His mottos, "I will work harder," and Napoleon's always right, just demonstrate his unwavering loyalty and his failure to question anything.
Right, his failure to question the motives or actions of those in power.
Yeah, so his dedication to the cause, while admirable in its sincerity, ultimately leads to his exploitation and demise.
Exactly.
He's literally worked to death and then sold to a glue factory,
He is.
with the proceeds used to buy whiskey for the pigs.
Yes. It's a very tragic end for a very sympathetic character.
Yeah, definitely.
But it serves as a warning about the consequences of placing blind faith in authority figures
Right.
and accepting their pronouncements without question.
Yeah, you can't just blindly trust people in power.
Exactly.
We have to think for yourself.
Yes, you have to be critical. You have to be willing to question.
It also highlights how those in power can manipulate language and distort the truth to exploit the very people who support them.
Exactly.
So Orwell's use of satire, I think, is particularly effective in exposing the hypocrisy and brutality of the pigs regime.
Definitely.
Can you maybe remind us what satire is and how it works in Animal Farm?
Sure, satire is a literary device that uses humor, irony, and exaggeration to criticize something, often with the aim of bringing about change.
Okay.
In Animal Farm, Orwell satirizes the Soviet Union under Stalin, exposing the gap between the lofty ideals of communism and the grim reality of life under a totalitarian regime.
Okay, and what are some examples of how he does that?
Well, one of the most striking examples of satire is the way the pigs gradually adopt the habits and vices of the humans they initially rebelled against.
Oh, right. They start drinking whiskey,
Yes.
sleeping in beds, wearing clothes,
Yeah.
and even engaging in trade with neighboring farms.
Exactly.
All things that were originally condemned as symbols of human oppression.
Right, and this ironic reversal highlights the corrupting nature of power and the tendency for revolutionaries to become the very tyrants they sought to overthrow.
Wow.
It also satirizes the hypocrisy of those who claim to be fighting for equality while enjoying privileges and exploiting others.
They're becoming the very thing that they hated.
They are.
Okay.
And they even go so far as to change the name of the farm back to Manor Farm, symbolizing their complete abandonment of the principles of animalism and their embrace of the very system they initially fought against.
Right. So another key aspect of Orwell's satire is the manipulation of language,
Yes.
particularly through Squealer's pronouncements. Right. The pigs constantly twist the meaning of words and distort the truth to justify their actions and maintain their grip on power.
Exactly.
And this is evident in the way that the Seven Commandments are gradually altered to suit the pig's needs.
Yes.
Right? The commandment, "No animal shall kill any other animal," becomes, "No animal shall kill any other animal without cause."
Right. Providing a convenient loophole for the pigs to eliminate their rivals and dissenters.
Exactly.
It's very clever and very cynical.
Yeah, so the pig's control over language allows them to control the narrative, shaping how the other animals perceive reality
Right.
and ensuring their continued compliance.
Yes. This is a powerful reminder of the importance of critical thinking
Right.
and the need to question the pronouncements of those in power, particularly when they control the flow of information.
Now, Orwell also uses a lot of symbolism in Animal Farm.
He does.
Can you elaborate on some of the key symbols and their significance?
Sure, one of the most prominent symbols is the windmill, which represents the pig's ambition for progress and modernization.
Okay.
However, it also becomes a symbol of their exploitation of the other animals who are forced to work tirelessly on its construction, only to see it repeatedly destroyed and rebuilt for the pig's benefit.
So the windmill kind of represents both hope and disillusionment,
It does.
reflecting the dashed dreams of the animals who believed that the revolution would lead to a better life for all.
Exactly.
Now, what about the Seven Commandments themselves?
The Seven Commandments themselves are also symbolic, representing the ideals of animalism and the promise of a more equitable society.
Okay.
However, as the pigs gradually alter these commandments, they become a symbol of the malleability of truth and the ease with which those in power can manipulate principles to serve their own interests.
Right. They can twist the meaning of anything
They can.
to suit their own needs.
Exactly.
And I think one of the most powerful symbols in the book is the transformation of the pigs into human-like figures,
Yes.
especially at the end of the novel when the animals are looking through the farmhouse window and they can no longer distinguish between the pigs and the humans.
Right. This chilling image symbolizes the cyclical nature of tyranny and the ease with which those who seize power can become indistinguishable from their oppressors.
It's like they've come full circle.
They have.
They've become the very thing that they overthrew.
Exactly.
And it suggests that without constant vigilance and a commitment to democratic principles, societies are susceptible to repeating the mistakes of the past.
Absolutely.
So the ending of Animal Farm is both bleak and thought-provoking.
It is.
It suggests that the cycle of oppression is difficult to break, and that power, regardless of who wields it, can corrupt even the most well-intentioned individuals.
It's a very pessimistic but also very realistic view of human nature
Yeah.
and the dynamics of power.
Yeah, and despite its bleak ending, Animal Farm also offers a glimmer of hope.
What way?
Well, the story's enduring relevance and its continued ability to spark debate and inspire critical thinking suggests that Orwell's message has resonated with readers across generations and cultures. The fact that we're still discussing this book decades after its publication indicates that its warnings about the dangers of tyranny and the importance of vigilance remain timely and urgent.
I agree.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of time unpacking the historical context and the literary techniques in Animal Farm.
Yeah.
But now let's turn our attention to the book's enduring relevance in contemporary society.
Okay.
Like, why does this story, written in 1945 about a fictional animal rebellion,
Right.
why does it still hold our attention today?
I think the power of Animal Farm lies in its ability to transcend specific historical events and speak to universal truths about human nature and the dynamics of power.
Okay.
The themes Orwell explored, the allure and corrupting influence of power, the manipulation of truth for political gain, the dangers of blind obedience, these are as relevant today as they were in the era of Stalin and Hitler.
Absolutely. So what are some of the contemporary parallels that make Animal Farm feel so unnervingly current?
Well, we see echoes of Animal Farm in the rise of authoritarian leaders and ideologies around the world. Okay.
The methods used by the pigs to seize and maintain control, propaganda censorship, the suppression of dissent, the rewriting of history.
Right.
These are all chillingly familiar in the context of modern-day dictatorships, and even in some democratic societies where these principles are being eroded.
And I think the spread of disinformation and propaganda, particularly online, is another really disturbing parallel.
Definitely.
Just as Squealer manipulated the animals through carefully crafted lies and distortions, modern-day propagandists use social media and other digital platforms to spread misinformation, sow division, and manipulate public opinion.
Exactly. And the ease with which false information can be disseminated and amplified online creates a breeding ground for distrust.
Right.
Fear and political polarization mirroring the atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia that permeates Animal Farm.
Yeah, Orwell's portrayal of the animals' gradual descent into complacency and their willingness to accept the pigs' increasingly tyrannical rule.
Right.
It also has some disturbing implications for modern society. It's a cautionary reminder that even in societies that value freedom and democracy, the potential for tyranny always exists.
Right.
Especially when citizens become apathetic, uncritical, or too willing to surrender their individual rights in exchange for perceived security or stability.
So what lessons can we draw from Animal Farm
Yeah.
to help us safeguard against tyranny and preserve democratic ideals in our own time?
I think one crucial takeaway is the importance of education and critical thinking.
Okay.
Orwell believed that an informed and engaged citizenry is the best defense against those who seek to manipulate and control.
Right.
We must be equipped to evaluate information from multiple sources, discern fact from fiction, and resist the allure of simplistic narratives or emotional appeals.
Yeah, that requires not only access to information,
Right?
but also the ability to think critically,
Yes.
to question authority, and to engage in reasoned debate, even when it's uncomfortable or challenging.
Absolutely.
I think another crucial lesson is the importance of vigilance.
Yes.
We can't afford to become complacent or take our freedoms for granted.
Right. The erosion of democratic norms and institutions often happens gradually, almost imperceptibly until it's too late.
Exactly.
We must be attentive to the warning signs, the suppression of dissent, the concentration of power, the manipulation of language, the erosion of trust in institutions, and be willing to speak out against injustice even when it carries risks.
Yeah, the ending of Animal Farm,
Oh,
with its chilling image of the pigs becoming indistinguishable from the humans,
right.
it serves as a reminder that power corrupts regardless of ideology or good intentions.
Absolutely.
The animals' revolution, which began with this noble goal of creating a more equitable society, ultimately ends in a form of tyranny that mirrors the very system they overthrew.
It does, and this underscores the importance of holding those in power accountable regardless of their political affiliation or their stated goals.
Right.
We must demand transparency, ethical conduct, and a commitment to the principles of justice and equality from our leaders.
So Animal Farm is a story that needs to resonate because it speaks to this enduring human struggle for freedom, justice, and dignity.
Yes.
It's a stark reminder that the fight against tyranny is never truly over,
Mm-hmm.
and it requires constant vigilance, critical thinking, and a willingness to defend democratic principles.
I agree.
Well, this deep dive into Animal Farm has been a journey through layers of allegory symbolism and stark political commentary.
It has.
And though written over 70 years ago, this seemingly simple fable about animals
Right.
offers profound insights into the complexities of power, the dangers of propaganda, and the fragility of democracy.
It does.
We hope this exploration has given you a renewed appreciation for the power of literature to illuminate the human condition and to inspire us to be more engaged and informed citizens.
Thanks for listening to Mythos AI. Stay tuned for more concise insights. And remember to hit the like button and subscribe for future episodes.